see. The machine's actually working. In shock. Cold in here? Good morning, Hale Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody awake, more or less? Now we have Post. Tahoka's out there. I didn't have a chance to check football games. Post, did you guys win this weekend?
No.
Uh-oh. That's not sounding good. Tahoka, did you guys win?
No, sir.
Hale Center, did you guys win?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Thank heaven somebody won. All right. I don't know what's going wrong down at Post there, because Post is usually a pretty strong team. Tahoka, have you played Post yet? Or Post and Tahoka, have you guys played each other yet? No?
What'd you say, sir?
Have you played Post yet?
No, we have not.
Not yet. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Are you able to turn your volume up?
Let me check it. You can certainly turn yours up in the front of the room.
Ours is up. We just worked the other day.
Say again?
Ours is up, sir. We had to get the service center check ours the other day.
Oh, really? Okay, let me check it. Usually the only volume I can actually control is the volume I hear by. You guys are coming through really clear here. I'm hearing from Tahoka that they are having trouble with volume, hearing me. And I know someone went down there, they say someone went down there and checked it the other day. The only volume I can actually control, I can't control what I put out, I can only control it here. Hang on for a minute. Hale Center, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're coming in. And Post, you guys are hearing all right. Wave your hand, you don't have to push the mic. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's a Tahoka thing. Okay. Coach, I just called our techs and told them y'all are still not getting the sound very loud, so whatever they did for you, they didn't do it very well. And we'll tell the region about it. We'll try and get it turned up for you. All right, everyone. Over the weekend, let's see. Who wasn't in school? Tahoka was out, right? You were out on Friday. Did some of you guys, were you able from home to watch the class at 10 o'clock? Show of hands. Anybody watch the class at 10 o'clock? Oh, outstanding. Outstanding. Okay. And I also sent out to y'all a URL for YouTube. And that URL will work all semester long. You can go in and look at recorded classes in there. The recordings of this particular class. I also, if I remember to push the button, record the 10 o'clock classes, but I forgot to push the button on Friday. But this class was recorded. I noticed when I went back and looked at it, the beginning of it's all kinds of creepy stuff on the screen and all that. If you just kind of push that little ball at the bottom of the page forward, you can get through that and get into the class and look at what we did on Friday. But I'm going to kind of back up anyway a little bit and go over things, kind of as they say when they're playing bridge. You guys probably don't know what bridge is. It's a fairly intellectual card game. When I joined the Marine Corps and I told people I wanted to play bridge, they ostracized me because all they did was play poker. Let's review the bidding a little bit. Let's see where we've been. I have looked at and graded all of the quizzes. You can't see the grades. They won't appear for a while. Some of the grades were pretty darn good, and some of the grades made me nauseous. It made it very difficult for me to grade over the weekend because I had to keep resting and catching my breath. Listen, one thing to learn really quickly, this class is all tied up in technical things. If you have a problem, tell me. Don't cry to your facilitator or anything like that. Tell me directly. Either send me a thing in through Message Center or send me an email. Because I'm closer to the people that can fix things. Sometimes I can fix it myself for you. But for example, if you get locked out of a quiz or something like that, you need to tell me right away. Don't sit there and wait for your mama to help you. We're beyond that stage in our education now. You're at the stage where you have to take care of yourself, and you have to figure out how to find help, and you need to find it as quickly as possible. Because I have a... Go ahead.
Two of the people from here...
Oh, you're blasting me out. One mic at a time, please.
Two people from here had trouble turning in their tests.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of people from there. I think they're... Is it sisters?
No.
No? Okay. We'll deal with it, but you need to talk to me about exactly what happened so I can fix it. Tell me, just send me a message in Message Center. And
They said that they sent a message.
They did? I haven't seen a message saying anything. I'll go back and look through my messages again. Because I kind of went into shock looking at some of the things. Let me tell you some common errors people made on those readings. First of all, you're not going to see a nightmare like that with readings like that again. That was kind of a test. You know, if you use old language, are you a big boy yet? You a big girl yet? We will mainly have multiple choice quizzes, and they mainly won't take that long, and you mainly won't have to read that much. Okay? But that's kind of your baptism in the college level study. No more hand feeding, no more spoon feeding. Nobody's going to help you but yourself. I'll help you. But you've got to talk directly to me and get over the fear of talking to your instructor. I know a lot of people are shy, they've never done this before, or they're just getting used to it. Get over that. The people that really benefit from these classes are people that blab at me all the time. I'll answer those things. In the past week, I've been doing administrative things that I always have to do at the beginning of the semester, and I've been recording everybody's book selections and things like that. Almost all of that's taken care of, and I appreciate the fact that you guys got your stuff done on time. The name of the game is get it done on time. The name of the game is don't wait till the last minute. I know that's the all-American way. What are some American characteristics we have? Wait till the last minute and then rush it, and you couldn't have done it with those Hackweed and Hale's readings and really understood what they were talking about. The other thing is ask questions. And you'll get help. If you don't ask questions, if you don't ask for help, it's not going to come from up in the sky somewhere or anything like that. All right? I'll go ahead and put the results of the quizzes out, and those of you who had disasters on the quiz, you need to talk to me, tell me what the problem was. Whether it was just, I can't read that stuff, or whether it was I had a technical problem. Okay? We'll fix it. You're not gonna die because of one quiz. Maybe 2 quizzes. Anyway, let's go back and review the bidding as I said we were gonna do, using my bridge terminology. We ended Friday starting to talk about Cortez, so we were pretty far up we talked about the Portuguese already, we talked about the Spanish. Let's look at the Spanish just for a second. I'm gonna put the machine up. It's a set of slides. You've got a set of slides called the Portuguese and the Spanish, and that's kind of what we're looking at right here. And I'm going to go through it really fast, and I'll stop. We know about 1492 and the fact that Castile and Aragon are more or less united under Ferdinand and Isabella. And they're going to start looking at some of the islands offshore. They're going to start looking at what the Portuguese did and thinking, we need that money too. There's a neat painting of the capitulation of Granada. That's the last victory. That's really romanticized. I'm sure it didn't look like that in reality, but that's what the artist did for Ferdinand and Isabella. There's the Alhambra decree that I mentioned to you, which said, right after that was all over, either be Catholic or be out of here. Then we talked about Columbus's voyages. He made 4 of them. Can you remember what happened after he made the first voyage? When Portugal realized, hey, wait a minute, these guys are sticking their nose in our monopoly here, and cried to, who did they cry to settle the fight between the Spanish and the Portuguese? Wake up, guys. Who? The French. No, who did they cry to? Who's the big authority in Europe? More important than kings. Come on, guys. Hale Center, help me out. Tahoka, help me out. Somebody. Who was the only guy in the Western world more important in theory than the kings of the countries? There he is, right there. Alexander the Sixth. He was a member of the Borgia family. They go to Pope Alexander, settle this fight. And he comes up with an idea which they make into a treaty the following year called the Treaty of Tordesillas. Draws that big line. You notice it lops off a little piece of South America. Actually, when they negotiated the treaty, they lopped off a little bit more than Pope Alexander lopped off. That will eventually become Brazil, the only part of South America that speaks Portuguese. Spanish to the west of the line, Portuguese to the right. And eventually they'll sign another treaty called the Treaty of Zaragoza in 1529 to handle the other side of the world when they meet on the other side. Second voyage of Columbus, got it memorized. Third voyage of Columbus, got that memorized. Meantime, by the way, after the first and second voyages, other people are making trips in the direction of the Americas. The floodgates are open and a whole bunch of people are going to start coming over, mainly looking for money and things to do now that they're not fighting the Moors anymore. Fourth voyage actually goes along the coast of what we call Central America. They call these early Spanish explorers the conquistadors. Remember, the Reconquista was the words that we used about reconquering all of the Iberian Peninsula and driving the Moors off. One of the famous ones was Vasco Núñez de Balboa, 1513, went across, overland, across the Isthmus of Panama, and saw the Pacific and claimed to be the first man to see the Pacific. Probably wasn't, but he laid claim to it, and we give him credit for it. In 1519, Ferdinand Magellan is going to set off to circumnavigate the world. What they were really doing, the reason that they really went was they heard the Portuguese got the Spice Islands, and they wanted to get in on that So he's going to rush around the world and try and get to the Spice Islands and set up a little outpost there, which will be done, but it doesn't last. Then eventually, the Spanish will get control of the Philippines, and the Portuguese will hold on to control of the Spice Islands. Then we talked about, and we ended up, I think, last time talking about Hernan Cortez, and let's talk about him just a little bit. He was on Cuba, and there was word that there were interesting things on the mainland of what we now call Mexico. And the governor of Cuba is going to give him permission to go over there and look around, and he'll start that in 1519. On the way there, he'll stop off on some islands. He'll pick up one Spanish guy who was marooned on those islands, lived with the Indians, and could speak several Indian dialects, including Nahuatl, which was the dominant dialect used by the Aztecs and the people that they dominated. He also picked up a woman. She goes by several names. Eventually the Spanish will start calling her Doña Marina. Some people call her, in Mexican history, call her La Malinche. Other people in Mexican history call her a name that I'm not allowed to use, especially with high school students, because one point of view was that she was the mother of the Mexican race. The other point of view was that she was the first Mexican trader, because she sold out to the Spanish. The thing about this, she spoke Nahuatl, she spoke Aztec language, she knew about the Aztecs. The people that were around the Aztec Empire hated the Aztecs with the Purple Passion. Why? Because the Aztecs dominated by power and terror. And so they were only too happy to guide the Spanish there and hope that the Spanish did terrible things to them. Remember when you were doing your reading about the first adventure in America, or the Roanoke colony, where the Indians noticed that you got sick whenever the colonists showed up, and then they wanted to go visit people they didn't like? Kind of the same attitude there, you know? Go visit the people we don't like. Well, La Malinche helped Cortez do that. Not only that, but she bore him one child. Eventually she's going to be kind of legitimatized. She'll marry another Spanish grandee and have a few more children. This is a pattern in the world, not just with the Spanish, but with people that went to Africa and other places. A lot of times, the people that were being dominated would push forth girl children to marry them to the dominators as one way to get the connections they needed to survive. In this modern day and age, you'd think, oh my goodness, you can't possibly do that. Well, people did that then. And the Europeans did it too. The Habsburg family used their girls and married them off to people to get control of other parts of Europe. Sorry, ladies. That's just the way it was. We can't erase history. Anyway, over a period of 2 years, going into Tenochtitlan and then back out again, because the governor of Cuba sent people over to arrest Cortez. He convinced the people that came to arrest him that they would make more money if they went to his side, so the force that was after him basically deserted the official service and went to Cortez's side. And by 1521, they dominate the Aztecs, and they're going to destroy the Aztecs as a civilization. And I always find it, and you think about this on your own, I always find it interesting that we're talking about going over and civilizing someone, teaching them the right way to live and all that. Let's think about it. In Spain, large city like Granada, maybe population of 40,000. In Mesoamerica, in the Valley of Mexico, large city, 150,000. In Tenochtitlan, they had sewage systems, they had irrigation systems, pretty tightly organized city administration. In Spain, yeah. How did Spanish empty their toilets in the mornings? Out the window. Okay? Now, how are those people going over to civilize these people? It's just a thought to keep in your mind. I'm not going to answer your question. Another of the big conquistadors that you should remember is a fellow we call Pizarro. He and his brothers and some of their allies are going to make about 4 trips into South America, trying to get to a big Indian civilization that they've heard of. And finally they will get there. It's the Incas. They take advantage of the Incas in about 1533. The Incas are having an internal civil war at the time, and while their guard is down, the Spanish are going to move in and eventually take over the whole thing. At first it's all plunder. The Incas have lots and lots of silver and gold, and basically, as they did in Tenochtitlan, the Spanish are going to just plunder that gold. But eventually, as you move into the 1500s, the Spanish are going to have to start mining it. Those first guys that got there, they had a lot of money at the end of the day. But eventually, they're going to start mining that silver and all that, and they're going to kind of use the Inca's system of labor to force people to mine for them. At one point, they'll bring African slaves over. The African slaves do well in sugar plantations and places like that, but they don't do well in the mines. And when you get further into the 1500s, initially when you're mining silver, they were getting really, really rich ore that they could smelt. Basically what you do is you heat it and let the silver run off. It melts faster than other things, and that way you could refine the silver. But eventually the silver won't be that pure. It's still there, but it's not that pure. And in the 1560s, I want to say, someone discovered a process or developed a process where you could use mercury, which would combine with the silver. That way you could eliminate the dirt and other impurities, and then mercury evaporates at a pretty low temperature, so you just heat it a little bit, the mercury would melt off or would evaporate, and you would have pure silver. So from about the 1560s onward, they had that process, and they became the world's #1 source of silver. Now, in a little place that's now in what we call Bolivia, but back then it was just part of the Incan Empire, called Potosi, P-O-T-O-S-I. You might want to write that down. Eventually, they're going to exhaust that silver supply, and there will be other silver mines in Mexico, and finally in North America. But at the time, Potosi was the largest source of silver in the world, and it was very useful to the Spanish because the Chinese had almost everything in the world that they could want, but they really wanted silver and they didn't have any. What's the old line? You only want it because you haven't got it. So that really, really boosted Spanish trade with China, which was their original objective when they went to the Americas anyway. We'll talk about that down the line a little bit. Another Spanish conquistador was Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca. What's Cabeza de Vaca mean? Anybody? Come on, guys. Someone's got to speak Spanish. What's Cabeza de Vaca mean?
Head of a cow.
Cow's head. Wouldn't you love to have a name like that? Cow's head. Okay. Anyway, he's going to travel through modern-day Mexico and maybe parts of the Gulf shores of what's modern-day United States. In between 1527 and 1535. So it's right about the time Pizarro's down there subjugating the Incas, and a little bit after Cortez subjugated the Aztecs. Another one, De Soto, traveled a long distance, or his expedition did, into what is now Florida, a lot further north than that, all the way west, across the Mississippi. He died on the way across the Mississippi, but the remnants of his expedition finally survived and made it back to the Gulf, to the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. We all know out here about Coronado, Francisco Vasquez. Oh, sorry, I'm showing you pictures that you can't see. Let's go back and look at De Vaca for a minute. I'm sorry, guys. My director didn't yell loud enough. Can you not see it? Oh, geez. Hello? Come on. There it is. There's the Vacas route. There's the Soto. And you've got Coronado, the fellow we call Coronado. And he, in the 1540s, is going to go deep into what is now the United States. He will also, he or members of his group, will be the first Spaniards to see the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River. He'll go up through what is now New Mexico, part of what is now Texas, as far as what is now Kansas. Looking for the city of gold. People were always looking for a city of gold, El Dorado. At first they thought it was in South America, then they decided it must be in North America. It's the same as the Portuguese looking for the city of Prester John, they thought it was in Africa, and then later they decided it was in Central Asia, and I'm not sure where the story ends. When the dust settles, that's what the Portuguese and the Spanish are doing. The white lines are the Spanish trade route, and of course it goes off to the left and reappears on the right-hand side. The world's round, but the map isn't. So you can see their main routes. And one of the big things is that from the Americas, they have a regular trip that goes in the direction of the Philippines and China, taking that silver over there and getting all sorts of other precious stuff back from China. There's another one, that's the route of the Manila Galleon, which goes over to the Philippines and picks up things from China. Their vulnerability, because they put a lot of wealth on one ship or one group of ships, was very high. Because all you had to do was capture that ship, and you got about half of the entire income of the Kingdom of Spain, half of 1 year's income, might be on one or two ships. So if you were an enterprising pirate with a big ship with big guns, you could kind of retire after one voyage. Who are the people on these pictures? Those ones are the Dutch, who didn't like the Spanish very much and were fighting a revolution against them, which will end in 1645, the 80 Years' War. And they're going to go after everything the Spanish have. And then also, the British will do the same thing. The slang expression for the British pirates or privateers were called the Sea Dogs, and the slang expression for the Dutch, they were the Sea Beggars. That's a literal translation from the Dutch word waterguzen. The word guzen is beggars, and you can figure out what the word water means. I need a drink of water. Some of the other things that were kind of tough as far as the Spanish were concerned, the indigenous population hated them with a purple passion. More than later on when the British go to the Americas, the Indians will hate the British colonists. There were rather weak ratio of Spaniards to local people. And it took them a long time before they developed any kind of domestic economy. Eventually, the Spanish are going to start developing sugar the way the Portuguese have already started doing it. And it's the third biggest money for the Spanish. People, when they describe the Spanish, they say they went for gold, God, and glory, and they did go out there with lots of priests to try and convert the local people. They tried to replace paganism with Catholic culture. They tried to extract goods of high intrinsic value. As I said, first they tried to just take it away from the Indians, and eventually they're going to get in the process of mining for gold and for silver. The way they're organized is pretty rigid. They're controlled by the crown. We won't get in deeply into it, but the crown had 3 channels of control. One was a direct one where you have viceroys in control of really large areas, audiencias under the viceroys, etc., get down to mayors of cities. Then you had the church, and they had the same kind of hierarchy. And then parallel to them, you had the inspectorate, who were looking at the church and looking at the civil government to make sure they weren't ripping the king off. They had 3 lines of control, pretty rigid. They were all Roman Catholic. We'll go back and look at vocabulary. These are some words that you kind of notice when you're talking about the Spanish Reconquista. We already know. Oops, sorry, thank you. Reconquista. Come on, machine. We talked about that. That was the process of driving the Moors off the Iberian Peninsula. Encomiendo was the way that the crown persuaded the early conquistadors to go over there. Since the crown didn't have a lot of money to give away, what they did was they said, okay, you can have the land that you see, and you can control the people there. It's up to you. They owe you either labor or money, and you owe them protection. Eventually there'll be something called the repartimiento, and you see down below the mita, and I told you about the mita. That was the Incas' way of requiring every village to do a little bit of work in the mines every year. The repartimiento is the Spanish version of that. They're going to keep right on doing what the Incas were doing because it worked. And they found out that the people that they brought in, such as slaves and things like that from Africa, did not do well in the mines. You can go back and look at these slides if you want. It explains it. But basically, the Spanish settlements are going to go from just grabbing what you can see in front of you to starting to produce things. I'm trying to look at the biggest money, gold at first, and then silver after that. Major silver strikes down Potosi was a big one. Near Mexico City, there were other major silver mines and gold mines. $22 million pesos came out of the mines, of the gold mines, before 1560. I have no idea how much that's worth now, but it was a lot. When silver started being brought out, first they used the old amalgamation system, and finally they used the system, or first they did smelting, and then they did what we call amalgamation, where they used mercury. What do you guys know about mercury? Somebody. Tell me about mercury. You know, our early colonists used mercury as medicine. Can you imagine? What do we know about mercury? Anybody? Anybody? Come on, speak up. Come alive. Can you drink it? Do you like to inhale it? It's poisonous. And so using mercury on the silver tended to kill everything all around the mines, and eventually maybe even the miners. Long, painful process. And yes, it was carcinogenic too, but usually with mercury you didn't worry about that because you were going to be dead a lot faster than you had a chance to get cancer. Think about that. And then look at those little light bulbs that we all buy in Walmart from China. Those little curlicue ones, right? They're filled with mercury. What happens when you break one? Nobody thought about that. They just sent it to all of us and said, here, save electricity, guys. You're not even supposed to throw those in the trash can. Did you know that? I bet we all do. Because it puts mercury in the ground at the landfill. Large amounts of it. Yeah. Well, you and I will probably be dead of old age by then, but it's probably going to poison somebody's grandchildren. Okay. So that's how the Spanish developed. They also had a pretty strict social order, starting with the people who were born on the Iberian Peninsula and came over were called peninsulares. People that were pure-blooded Spanish, but they were born in the Americas, were called criollos. That's not Creoles. It's a different word, different meaning. People of mixed blood, Spanish and Indian blood, were called mestizos, which is the majority of the racial makeup of Mexico and Central America and South America. If you were mixed with slave blood, African slaves, Zambos. And then the lowest on the totem pole were the slaves. And this was a pretty rigid society, so in theory you couldn't move from class to class. But some criollos married some people of Indian origin or mestizo, and when you looked at them, you couldn't tell the difference. And guess what they told everybody? They said, I'm criollo, pure-blooded Spanish. So there was some movement in between classes. And another way you could move between classes was in the church, because the church valued people with a brain. And so even an Indian, a pure-blooded Indian, if he was smart and he was converted, could move up in the church. Okay. What else came out of it? All this contact of the Spanish. And then we'll go back and we'll start talking about the French and English. We had something called, write this down, the Columbian Exchange. What are we talking about? What was being exchanged? Human beings. You were bringing Europeans onto a different continent. You were mixing blood between different races. What's the word for that? Anybody? Nobody knows. It's called miscegenation. Or miscegenation. It sounds a little bit like the hatred of women, but it's a different word. That's where you mix blood. In some places that was illegal. The Spanish didn't have racial hang-ups. Of course, you know, people like the Nazis had racial hang-ups. I'm a practicer of miscegenation. Ah, you're guilty, Mr. Hunt, because I'm married to a woman from Asia. She reminds me of that from time to time. Anyway, then our children all pretend that they're Hispanic, because they can speak Spanish probably better. How many kids own up to being Hispanic in class? Raise your hand. Wake up. Raise your hand. I want to see hands. Good for you. Good for you. How many of you speak Spanish? Raise your hand. Yeah, I remember. I asked the question before, right? Okay. So I can't say any dirty words. You'll understand what I say. Okay. Another thing that comes out of this mixture, you're doing things like bringing new plant life in. You're bringing new animal life in, especially when the English come, but also the Spanish. They bring the first equines, horses, donkeys. They bring the first cattle. Other animals I'm trying to think of. Pigs, goats. What just happened? Oh, okay. Yeah, and I lost the screen and we went back there. Those animals, number one, transform life because people have new sources of food. But number two, they transform the environment because they do things to the environment. Especially pigs and goats. That's why in the state of Texas, all you have to do is ask a landlord. You don't even need a license and you can go kill as many pigs as you want because they're destructive. Can you imagine what they did to Indians' crops and things like that? They didn't have fences. Probably not very popular until the Indians learned to eat pigs. What else did they bring? Foods. Where did coffee come from? Anybody? Where did coffee come from? If you give me the wrong answer, I want somebody to give me the wrong answer. Where did coffee come from? Hail Center, help me out. Where did coffee come from? Someone's getting brave. What are you doing? Passing your mic? Say again.
Europe.
Wrong answer. Thank you, though. Thank you very much for your participation. It came from the Middle East. and maybe northern Africa. Where did chocolate come from? We get all of our chocolate, by the way, from the Ivory Coast now, through child labor. Enjoy that when you're drinking your hot chocolate. Where did chocolate come from? Nobody? I'm looking in this room, everyone's got these blank looks on their face or silly smiles. Chocolate came from the Americas, Central South America and South America. I'm trying to think of important things. Where did okra come from? Everybody in Texas eats okra. Where did okra come from? Africa. You know, Africa depends, the southern part of Africa, they depend on something called mealie meal. It's made from maize. Where did that come from? It didn't come from Africa. It came from the Americas. The regular kind of corn, like we eat, corn on the cob, came from Europe. Where did smallpox, influenza, trying to think of some other things besides that. All of them were deadly diseases back then. Smallpox was the biggest killer in the world. I think it's still the biggest killer in the world. I mean, it's not an active disease now. By the way, when everyone's crying about, I don't want to get shots, it's no fair to force me to get shots, how do you think we got rid of smallpox? Every one of us got shots, and we wiped out smallpox. Every one of us in my generation and your parents' generation, look at their shoulder, somewhere on their shoulder they got a little scar from a smallpox vaccination. But now for some reason it's invading our freedom of choice and all of that. Anyway, okay. Diseases came. A lot of times people had an argument about where syphilis came from. Sorry to be talking about unpleasant things. I think it also came from the Americas. So, hello, Mr. Spaniard, you're going to bring me smallpox. I got something special to give to you. There was a big argument amongst historians about where it came from, and on the History Channel, they actually published fake news. They got taken in by people who didn't do good research. Okay. So that's the sort of thing. It also changed society. Let's look at Africa. Let's look at the American Indians. African rulers became dependent on slave trade for their income. And there's a tremendous drain of labor forces from Africa. Native Americans became dependent on trade because they liked things that were made from metal that they didn't have. They liked firearms eventually. And they're going to start changing the nature of their societies so that they can fit with the people that are bringing them the things they want. Most Native Americans, or a lot of Native Americans, including, let's say, the Navajo and the Hopi and all that, all had matriarchal societies. But the problem with the matriarchal society was that the Europeans all said men rule everything, and they're always looking for the man that's running the tribe. And it was really the ladies who chose who the chief was in a lot of eastern tribes. They let him go and be the chief, but they were the ones that picked him. All of these things are going to change. I can't say for the better or for the worse, I'm just going to say they changed. Smallpox, measles, influenza. In the Americas, I'll put the chart up if you want. In the Americas, as high as 95% of the indigenous population died after the Spanish got here. That's incredible. They weren't well treated or anything like that, but the major source of death was smallpox. Okay. Enough for the Spanish. Let's take a peek at the French really quickly. Gee, I could even finish the French in about 5 minutes for what I'm going to say about them. Let's look at the French. The French were aware of what the Spanish were doing. Come on, machine. Cooperate. In the beginning of the 1500s, we've got a French family called the Valois family, and its branch was called the Angoulême family. Francis I sends a guy by the name of Verrazano over to the Americas. His son Henry will be busy fighting at home. His grandsons Francois, Charles, and Henri will be busy fighting new religious wars, so they don't really follow up on it. But eventually a new line, a new family, at the end of the 1500s, in 1589, starting with Henry IV, will take over. Henry IV, by the way, is going to issue an edict called the Edict of Nantes. It's pronounced Nantes. In 1598, telling the people, stop running around trying to kill Protestants. And that ends temporarily the Protestant Catholic wars. But by the time we get to Louis XIV in the 1600s, he's going to cancel that edict and they're going to go back to chasing Protestants around. There are some of the Bourbons. There's the first explorer that the French sent over. His name doesn't sound very French. That's because he wasn't French. His name was Verrazano, and he's going to explore the coast of North America, the western coast of North America, on behalf of King Francis. They'll follow up with a fellow named Jacques Cartier. He's going to make 3 trips over to the Americas, up around the Gulf of St. Lawrence, around Newfoundland. He's actually going to get into the St. Lawrence River, probably as far up the river. And it's always funny when I say he's going up the river because he's going a little bit to the south, but he's going up the river because he's going upstream as far as where Quebec is. There's the old Great Lakes in case you don't know where they are. Later on, when Henry IV takes over, he's going to stop the religious wars for a while, and he's going to look back at the profit of an exploration. Now, the number one thing that the French are looking for, and when the English get into it, the number one thing they're looking for is an alternate route to what the Spanish are using, an alternate route to what the Portuguese are using, and they don't want to go across the Mediterranean because of the Ottoman Empire. So they got to find another route. So if you kind of divvy up the world, that means they got to go north somewhere. That's where you hear the Northwest Passage. It doesn't exist. But wait for 10 years, you guys will see the Northwest Passage when the polar ice cap melts. A path to China around the north side of North America. It's melting, believe me. Samuel de Champlain will be sent over, and he will establish the city of Quebec in 1608 on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, high on the banks, up on a cliff over the St. Lawrence River. He'll be the governor of what they call New France, which is all French territory. As long as Louis XIII is king, he'll explore the Great Lakes and look a little bit to the south, but not very far. One thing to note about the Spanish, they didn't have that many people go over initially. The French, even fewer. And when the French come to the Americas, they're going to quickly find that there's no gold available, there's no silver available where they're going, but there is fur available. And they will begin dealing with the indigenous people, with Indians, and their biggest partner will be the Hurons. Remember them, they're Iroquois-speaking Indians. And this will begin the beginning of an interdependence between the French who come over there and the Indians. They have things the Indians really want, metal things, metal cookware, metal weapons, eventually firearms, and the Hurons have the keys to the furs. And so the French will send individuals in with the Indians to live in their towns and what have you.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
That will be the big thing that France takes out of North America. And the French population in North America will never get over, say, 150,000 at the most, compared to the British population. When the French pull out of North America, the British have a population of about 1.5 million. So you can figure out who's going to win a fight between those two sides. Okay, that's all we've got for today. Look at the notes for Unit 2, and your scores for Quiz 1 will pop up pretty soon. Question?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So a couple people here at Tahoka, we can't see the quizzes.
Okay, I need someone to send me their name so I can go into the system and fix it.
Okay.
Okay? And Quiz 2's not open yet, so I'll open it as soon as I get back to my office. Don't need to do it until you do the readings. Some people found that out to their great discomfort. Do the readings first. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe that the system hasn't. Usually it turns off already. Now it's on time for once. Hallelujah. I've cheated you guys out of 2 minutes of class.
Have a good day, Mr. Hunt.
You do the same and go forth and do well. Achieve, achieve, achieve.
Your conference is now over.
Figure out how to
Goodbye.
install it. Coach Overstreet might not like hearing that. What? But it took them a while to figure it out, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, it took the whole
Wow, I'm gonna turn the TV off.
Yeah.
I was so angry.
Whenever I was working, they had it on at Riversmith,
Yeah.
just like right down.
Did
the
someone
road.
turn it off?
No. Whenever we were closing, they turned it off because we're supposed to turn off all the TVs when
Yeah.
we're closed. So whenever they turned it off, the other team was ahead. So.
Way ahead, yeah. Like 21-7. And I was watching the Tech defensive guys go through the lines of Houston and kind of shake hands with their running backs and say, why don't you go that way, and letting them go right on by them. Including a kid that did really well. I was really saying bad things about number 95. Did you kiss him on the way by? What did you do? And then in the second half, he got the quarterback at least twice and tackled running backs in the backfield a couple times. So I know that the Texas